Women deserve more than they're getting. I think that we recognize that sex differences between men and women really matter in terms of health outcomes, and therefore backing up to scientific study is critically important. There are many reasons that are given for the lack of women being included in research and clinical trials. Everything from the difficulty of studying women because of their, the life cycle of their hormones to the difficulty of enrolling women in studies. But what I say and what we say at the American Heart Association is where there is a will, there's a way. And women deserve the opportunity to be equally represented in science, equally represented in clinical trials. You see the classic man, clenching his chest as he's falling over having a heart attack. That isn't actually often how it happens for a man either. But women tend to have things like tightening of the jaw, numbness in their limbs. If they're having a stroke, as an example, terrible headaches that don't go away. Women are not little men, and they do experience heart disease throughout their life course, and it's very important that women pay attention to the signs of having a heart attack or a stroke, and that they're prepared to take action. Often women in the workforce have children at home. Perhaps they're caring for, their mother, their father, another relative. This point of needing, to really always perform at a A+++ level, whether it's true or in our minds, that's something that women feel every single day. And so all of this just adds a burden that can cause women to experience the risk factors for having a heart attack or a stroke. These things really matter, and when you look at engagement surveys of high-performing companies create that culture and they provide that benefit structure so that all of their employees, including the women employees, can bring their best selves to work every day.
cathode material is primarily made up of the lithium, which is usually the base, and then you have a couple different compositions, but iron phosphate and or nickel, manganese, and cobalt. So those materials can actually, at the end of a battery life, which is very long, they can be recycled at the end of that battery life and put back into an active cathode to then be used in a brand new battery pack. So it's fully regenerative. What we do is we allow for the materials to more efficiently be used, so they don't have to be broken out from each composition. So that makes a much more efficient process to use recycled materials, but also it makes it much more efficient to use virgin materials from critical materials. You don't have to separate out the manganese and the nickel altogether. You can combine it in its natural form and use that as a direct input. The battery space needs to grow 100x over the next decade to really meet the demands that it has on the sector and the supply chains for EV and energy storage. The batteries are the core of the energy transition and allow for the powering of wind and solar, et cetera. So to make that huge volume of batteries, you need huge volumes of the materials, right? And right now that's been done primarily in China at subsequently large volumes, but not large enough for this global large scale. So you're gonna see a lot more regionality. So you're gonna have battery material production all over distributed throughout the world to meet the global demand.
It was important to me because I was working as a National Parks Ranger and I didn't like the way that First Nations stories were told using metal signs in national parks. And I saw a way to use holograms to replace metal signs. We are not a company that will come to a community and load a whole new lot of technologies on the community. To me, success is every time an elder gets in a virtual reality headset or creates their own hologram and builds a confidence that they didn't have in a technology, and also learns how to stand in their power in those projects. So one of my favorite things that I've ever seen was 4 generations of women in a remote community, in Barada community in Western Queensland, all working on making holograms together. So a 4-year-old and an 84-year-old, and the generations in between that all collaborating on hologram development together. First Nations knowledges, languages and law are disappearing rapidly in my country. Australia has the highest rate of language extinction in the world, and we're scared about our knowledge systems not being translated into future generations. And as a custodian, I'm scared of that too. I guess what my community always say is that you are the dreams of your ancestors and your descendants are your dreams. And our biggest responsibility as human beings on this planet for such a short time is to be a good ancestor.